I think we're at 2 o'clock.
Let's go.
So if we are good to go, welcome everybody. Welcome to our first webinar from the Good Employment Charter. This is in place of a supporters network event, the sort of event that we run or used to run monthly. And we used to have some really great venues that we met up in. So this is a new venue for us, a new experience, so bear with us as we go through our first webinar. For those of you who are new to this platform, it's called Livestorm, and it works best on Chrome. So if you don't have your browser set to Chrome, if you could reload it, you'll probably get a better experience of the webinar through Chrome than any other platform. If you have any issues with sound or the video quality, just refresh the page and it should sort itself out. Those of you who have attended network events previously will know that we spend a lot of time actually networking rather than just listening to people. And we were very conscious that we wanted to try and facilitate that as well. So on the right-hand side of your screen, you will see that there's a chat button or a chat column. So please feel free to use that chat throughout the next 45 minutes, not just to talk to us and the team at the Good Employment Charter, but also to talk to colleagues who may be on the call. On the webinar, people that you would normally meet at our events. Also, on the right-hand side, you will see a tab for questions. It would be terrific if we have some questions that we can put to our panelists today. So please feel free to ask any questions on the subject that comes up or any other subject related to what we're currently going through. If we can't answer it today, we'll take the question away and we'll find someone who can answer it and get back to you after the session. Just also to say that we will be recording today and it will be available eventually on, well, quite shortly, I hope, on YouTube, that you can either, if you like it so much, you can come back and watch again, or you can pass on to colleagues who weren't able to attend today. As I say, this is all new to us, so please bear with us if we've got any technical problems. The panel today, and we wanted to focus obviously on the events that have unfolded over the past month or so. And we wanted to reflect really on health and well-being of employees and how that's impacting on everyone, but also your employees. And we've got a really great distinguished panel with us today. Really happy to introduce Daphne Doody, Head of CIPD for Northern England. Hi, Daphne. Wave. There you go. We've also got Geoffrey Leigh. Geoffrey is an old friend of the Growth Company. He's an old friend, not necessarily old. Hey, Geoffrey. And a consultant in business and HR planning, cultural change and performance management. But Geoffrey's got a vast range of experience and tales to tell and insights to give on how to cope through various stresses and strains in the workplace. So looking forward to hearing Geoffrey's top tips. And last but by no means least, someone who will be perhaps well known to people who have been involved in the Good Employment Charter, Nicola Ryan. Nicola is Director of Colleague Support at Rowlinson Knitwear. Rowlinson, of course, were one of our first members of the Charter. And you may also have read recently, if you've gone onto the Charter website, a blog by Rowlinson entitled Overwhelmed, So Are We, which kind of sums up where we are. We now seem to be in a new normal. I think the first 2-3 weeks, certainly for me, my own personal experience, I felt it was adrenaline fueled, mad rush to try and do everything, news coming in every from every quarter all day and every day. And then when you looked at the economy and what had happened to the economy, what had happened to business, it felt to me like we were rushing on a fairly fast express train, and then some drunken oik had pulled the panic brake and the emergency brake, and we came to a sudden stop, and we all fell over. And we all fell over, and now we're just kind of dusting ourselves off, trying to regain some composure and sit down and move forward a little bit. And it feels like we're now at a new pace, and we've kind of adapted quite quickly. And it's perhaps easier to look at that immediate side and how we responded, and then perhaps also to look at the long term, and we will do that. But the medium term is quite difficult to navigate at the moment, I think. How do we go through for the next month, the next 6 weeks or so, where there's so many unknowns? Of course, we also want to reflect about the future and how this new mantra of building back better, how do we reopen the economy, and how do we manage our employees through that in a good way? And what role will good employment play on the other side? Goodness, we're seeing so much about our key workers and our foundation economy colleagues at the moment, and how we're starting to realize the value so much of those jobs in society, and how have we valued them previously, and how do we try to value them in a different way through better employment standards moving forward, so that we have a safer, stronger and a fairer place to live. So look, let's go straight to Nicola if I can. Nicola, you've been at the front line of managing a business through this, through the shock, how you've managed your staff. You just give us some insights personally, maybe how you first feel, and then what's happened in the business.
Sure, yeah. I mean, same actually. I think when this all started seems like such a long time ago now, and really isn't. But I think that the key thing for us in our business has been planning. So our business, for anybody who doesn't know, is a distributor of school uniforms, of personalised school uniforms, and we employ 60 colleagues, mostly in the UK, with a small number overseas. And we were established in 1935 as a family-owned business, and then became employee-owned in 2015, really to act in the best interests of our colleagues and stakeholders. And my role in the business is colleague wellbeing, and what we've tried to do with this whole thing is to get ahead and to plan as much as we possibly can. But like yourself, Ian, we were, I reckon, running on adrenaline, certainly for the first couple of weeks, and thinking, what on earth has happened, you know? And so when the threat seemed relatively low, we started to try to do our bit. So we applied a phased approach for colleagues. So even when the threat seemed pretty low, we were trying to prepare. So we were doing things like issuing care packs to colleagues, so hand sanitizers, tissues, and talking about how we could follow really good hygiene on the premises to try to do our bit to reduce the spread of the virus, and to protect people as much as we possibly could. And we termed it the Be Sensible phase. And I think when we think about colleague wellbeing, I think doing that pretty early and doing that in a way, you know, with confidence that we were doing everything we possibly could at that time, I think gives people the confidence in us that we are taking this seriously and doing everything that we can to support people. Obviously, things escalated pretty quickly, and so we moved into the next phase, which at the time we termed that the essential only phase. So what that meant was that anybody who could work from home did immediately, that that we applied really strict distancing measures on site, and we also discussed things even before any government announcements, such as reductions in salary as alternatives to redundancy, because we really wanted to be prepared for whatever came and whatever that meant for the business, and we wanted our colleagues to be part of that as well. So colleagues shaped the solution, and we had colleagues offering up greater sacrifices and greater reductions in salary, because it was really important to them that together as a team we worked through. Obviously, we got the welcome news then from the government that they were going to support with the furlough and covering up 80% of salaries up to that £2,500. That was a massive relief for us, and has meant that we could protect colleagues as well. So from a wellbeing point of view, we found we had a lot of colleagues who were either getting to work using public transport or were falling into the vulnerable category. So when we looked at the numbers we needed, because in our business, in our industry, schools closed and then retailers closed. That had a big impact on our business. But we furloughed colleagues in accordance with those who were most vulnerable or those who were more exposed, because they were getting public transport first and foremost, because we wanted them safe and we wanted them home and out of harm's way. And so we prioritised those colleagues. And so I think in all of this, what's been really key has been that planning ahead. So, and communication has been really key as well. So we moved to, because we had quite a traditional model of communication, we just used to gather everyone together in our canteen and tell them if something was happening. We quickly moved on to video comms, which have been really well received actually, as opposed to any written communication. People get to see our face and see and see a real person and see the emotion in what we're saying as well, which I think is really important, because then they know that we mean what we say. And as such, we've had some really lovely feedback from colleagues, because we've been ahead and we've planned and we've told everybody what was happening at every point in the process. We've got some really lovely feedback from people that they're really glad they joined us, that there's nowhere else they'd rather work in the crisis. And people saying things like, it's more than a place to work for me, and it's family, and I'm happy to make whatever sacrifices is needed, which is lovely. So what we've done for colleagues is we've made sure that for any furloughed colleagues, we've paid them halfway the difference between furlough and what they would normally get. We've topped that up. And also the leadership team have taken reductions in salary as well to support that, up to half in some cases, which has been amazing and has really meant that we can kind of continue and can look after those traditionally lower paid colleagues, or those that need that support most. And I think well-being, and when I talk about planning especially, the next phase is looking at what happens next. So planning for the kind of support that people are needed. So we've been particularly worried about loneliness for those colleagues who maybe live on their own, who are feeling a bit isolated at the moment. And so we are in regular contact with them. So they will get a phone call at least once a week from someone at work to check in on them and to see how they're doing. We also do coffee hangouts online now, which are really good fun and nothing to do with work, and are all to do with how are people getting on. We crack a few bad jokes and talk about nice things in the news that we've seen to just sort of lift spirits a bit. And I think also we were particularly fortunate that just before all of this happened, we were able to deliver mental health and wellbeing training to 40 of our colleagues, which is unbelievable. It was a 2-day training course, which was really well supported by the growth company, and has meant that we've now got 40 people who have the skills to support mental health and well-being. And in our view, far better than us having a couple of 2 or 3 mental health first aiders. We've got 40 people now who know the techniques and who know the best places to signpost people. So it's been quite a journey, some ups and downs, but we're particularly proud that I think we're a business that really cares about people and cares about people that they know that they're cared for. And we've just carried that on in the best way that we can, because our colleagues' health and well-being is the priority and always will be.
I mean, you have been an exemplar in a whole range of areas, but to see the way the company reacted to this has been quite inspirational. And if colleagues haven't seen your blog, I would urge them to go and read it and hear the story, or read the story as well as hear it. Just quickly, Nicola, on how you communicated to the staff. How have the staff been involved in some of the decision making as well? Have they been involved in that?
I mean, our process for anything is quite consultative anyway, and being an employee-owned business means we're in it together. So at every stage, we chatted through our thoughts and feelings, what we thought might happen in these situations, and what we were doing to either mitigate against any issues, or what problems we had and what we were looking at to solve them. And that's just meant that our, quite organically, really, our colleagues have contributed to that and have made sure that they've shared their views and what they thought would happen. So they've pretty much been able to shape it, and they continue to do so. So now they're looking at things like, a break for those people that have continued to work, and how we're going to get some time in for their well-being. And that's been really led by colleagues that are in the building and working.
Amazing. Thank you. Daphne, can I turn to you? Obviously, as head of the Northern region from CIPD, you're coming into contact with hundreds, if not thousands, of employers. And my goodness, your phone and email must have been incredibly busy when this first hit. So what insights have you learned from all those interactions? But also, it might be useful if you could just point us in the direction of some really good resources that CIPD and others have produced to help employers through this.
Yeah. So thank you, Ian, and good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all well and safe. And I'd just like to say a huge thank you, actually, in recognition. I mean, some of the examples Nicola's just touched on are fantastic, and I think right now CIPD is hugely appreciative of what the people profession is doing. So whether you're a line manager or a HR practitioner, whoever's on the call, whether you're a business owner, I think there's a recognition that we are all navigating some really difficult and interesting times in the world of work, and we're all trying to do the best we can for our people and organisations. Some organisations are more sophisticated and big and are able to do things, but Nicola's just proved that you can do a lot with a smaller organisation as well. So just to set some context around the health and wellbeing agenda from CIPD before I kind of share some of my own reflections and certainly what we're hearing from HR. I mean, health and wellbeing has always been a really important factor of CIPD and job quality, and we've been incredibly proud to work with Ian and the Combined Authority on the Good Employment Charter. People and people's wellbeing has always been at the heart of how we champion better work and working lives, and that's CIPD's purpose, to champion better working lives. So people's well-being is absolutely at the heart and always has. So pre-COVID, we had been campaigning and working with organisations and hearing some great examples and initiatives of how organisations were starting to embed health and well-being. And this is less about a fruit bowl on a Friday and a free membership card. This was really about embedding health and wellbeing into their cultures and into their values. But we also recognised that it was a big challenge for quite a lot of organisations. So for the last few years, we've been doing something called the Working Life Survey. So if I mention any of our surveys or resources, they will all be available to you. We're going to make sure that that's available to you. So Working Life Survey, we reach out to employees, we work with YouGov on the survey, and for the last 2 years, health and wellbeing has come up as the most important indicator of somebody's job quality. So we know that from an employee perspective, it's really important. And then more recently, we launched the Health and Wellbeing annual Health and Wellbeing survey just before COVID, and there was some really interesting, survey results. In fact, one of them was that 60% of respondents said that the demand for help around mental health was increasing. So there was a witness that it was absolutely a critical part of the kind of people professional agenda. So I think pre-COVID, we already knew health and wellbeing was a really important part of what we needed to do in our organisations, and actually kind of roll forward to where we are now, second phase of lockdown. It is even more critical that we pay attention to health and wellbeing within our organisations, and certainly from a personal perspective, in terms of the conversations we've been having with our network, with our colleagues. I think the biggest recognition is that there's almost an uneven impact in terms of people's health and well-being. So on one end of the spectrum, you've got people who are comfortably getting used to this way of working. They have job security, they're seeing their family, that they're doing more exercise, really positive, I guess, stories of how people are adjusting to this. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we know that people are losing their jobs, dealing with bereavement, domestic abuse, all the other the kind of challenges that come with this particular scenario. So I guess what we're trying to do as a profession is address all of that. We're trying to help the people profession and provide as much guidance and support as we possibly can, so that you can enable yourselves as practitioners, but also your people managers. And I think people managers have a huge role to play. And I spoke to Ian the other day. I think the people in people management is the real important thing now. If you are a people manager, this is the time for you to kind of ramp up and step up into your role, because you absolutely need to be there for the people that you look after. In terms of the things that have been hot, in terms of hot topics, and if you are CIPD members or not, you'll have seen this. A huge amount of work has gone into what we have, which is a coronavirus hub. And just so that you're aware, if you're not a member, you can access the coronavirus hub. We have taken down our member walls, and we have gone out and we're giving all of our resources to anybody that needs them. So whether you're in the HR profession or you're anyone that's responsible for people, they are available. And I've been hugely proud of the CIPD and their kind of ability to kind of rapidly respond to this pandemic. So there's a huge amount of resources, and I'm sure we'll talk about them as the questions come through. But a couple of things that I want to make sure that you're aware of is the coronavirus hub. So every day we update that in line with government guidance. We have a range of different kind of webinars on furlough. No surprises, we've done a huge amount of advice and guidance on furlough, health and wellbeing, remote working. I think, we know this is the biggest experiment of home working that we'll probably ever go through. And it's really interesting around how we manage that and how the profession addresses that within their organisation. And then some other things that are coming up, where we know there are some issues, and I alluded to them earlier, are things like bereavement guidance, domestic abuse, alcohol abuse, some of the things that we know will impact people's mental health as we kind of go through this next phase, I guess, of the pandemic. So there's lots of resources available for the profession, but I think that some of the key challenges are, how do we really help our line managers? That's one big challenge. How do we support and help our line managers, and how do we make sure that we're using all the available resources that we have in order to make sure that we are helping people, supporting people with their physical and mental health?
I hope everybody is appreciating just how the swan continues to swim when things are going wrong behind the scenes. We seem to have lost Geoffrey, but I understand that it's not just Geoffrey that we've lost, but we've lost the whole of his neighbourhood. Unfortunately, the internet has gone down right where Geoffrey lives. So I think they're all trying their best to restore him. So when he comes back, and if he comes back, we'll hear from Geoffrey. Daphne, the point, and Nicola come in here too, about people managers, I think is really, really important for a whole range of organisations. We're well aware that people like to see their employees in front of them when they're managing them. The whole notion of presenteeism, and that really sits uncomfortably with some managers. Some will adapt. How do we support those that find this particularly difficult in that transition? And I guess at the bottom of this, and perhaps some of the good stuff that can come out of this, is a level of trust in the workplace that we can build and re-establish. Daphne, do you want to come back in, and then maybe Nicola, if you want to just...
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, your point about trusting is so important right now. So, on a personal level, I've worked remotely for 4 years, and I have a remote team. I'm quietly able to adjust to this scenario, although that it still throws up challenges. But I often or absolutely recognise that there are some line managers who have never worked in this kind of a scenario, and they are in some ways dealing with their own issues or challenges already, and then feel and absolutely have a responsibility for their teams and all of that. So all of their teams' challenges, whether it's a home issue or a work issue. I think what's really important in terms of what the HR profession can do for line managers is make sure that they know the capability of their people managers, so they have a sense of where they're sitting. Because if you don't know that how your people managers are going to deal with this, it could be it will be quite serious further down the line. So I think HR need to play a key role in understanding line managers' capabilities and provide as much development, coaching, resources as there is within their organisations. And I appreciate different organisations are structured differently. Not all of those organisations will necessarily have a huge amount of resource in this area, but I think again this is where HR needs to step up. If we don't have visibility of our capability or a desire to help our line managers through this, it will be quite catastrophic. So I think line management capability, peer-to-peer coaching. I've spoken to some organisations where they're creating networks within their own organisations to help people through this. And also in terms of any policies or guidance, it's making sure that your line managers know about this. So if HR are changing policies around absence management, or they have guidance around health and wellbeing, then all that information, I think Nicola, you touched on it earlier, communication is really important now at every layer throughout the organisation. So there's no point in HR creating all this fantastic guidance and reviewed policies if people managers don't know what exists and then how to have those conversations. So another thing I think that's really important is, how do people managers have those conversations? What does a successful conversation look like? There is a wellbeing conversation. There's a performance to a certain extent, probably another thing to discuss. How do you manage performance and well-being all together? But I think we have to be really flexible and compassionate as line managers right now, and do the best we can with the resources that are available to us.
I think one of the most important messages that we've shared, certainly in our business, is be kind, and that goes for everybody. So regardless of what your role is in the business, whether you're part of the leadership team, whether you're part of this amazing team of people that's coming in every day and still keeping operations running, is we're all doing the very best we can with the tools that we've got. And so we've shared with colleagues that, can we just be kind to each other through this period? And can we just understand that we're navigating uncharted territory at the moment? So let's all agree that we're going to respect the sentiment, and we all share the same sentiment of just trying to do the best we can. And that has opened the door to some really lovely conversations, actually, some really honest conversations. So we've all felt able, including the leadership team, to show our vulnerabilities, and when we're finding it tough, to be able to be really honest with that. And that has given others the courage to do the same. And I think just knowing your people, so knowing, we know our people well enough that when we pick up the phone, if there's a difference in their tone, if there's a problem, that we know it, and so we can understand that, and we can understand what that is. And that might be the challenge from working from home, because lots of people are up against some challenges. We've got quite a few people working from home with little ones at the moment because schools are closed, and so I think just saying that's all right. It is absolutely okay to struggle, no matter what your role is, no matter who you are in the business. That's okay. Just be honest, and there's somebody waiting in the wings to help you and to chat that through with you. And the chances are, at this point, there's somebody that's experienced what you're experiencing as well, and can share their kind of experience of that with you to hopefully help you through. And I think the other thing is, there's lots of weird and wonderful new ways of working coming out of this that are amazing, actually, and are really positive. And much of that will continue in the future. We see the lots of different ways of working from home, working remotely, and that's quite exciting, actually, for the future. So I'm excited to see what that holds with respect to new ways of working.
Fantastic, Nicola. More fantastic is we've got Geoffrey Leigh back.
We have indeed.
Hi, Geoffrey.
There's a problem with the local internet connection, apparently.
clearly not your problem, not your fault. So really great to have you, and you're perfectly timed. Geoffrey, I know you've got loads of them. Can you share some top tips just how we can cope through this?
You know, I was just listening to this conversation and realizing how, as you know, I started off work as an organizational development consultant, and across the years, learning how to support people and realizing how invaluable that was to the business. I trained in psychotherapy, and it seems that suite of learning is what's really, really important now. I was just sat here reflecting of all the material that is available out there, what might be most important. And I'm reminded of a formula that I came across many, many years ago to understand the different stresses and strains people are under, that simply points out that stress levels will be high when there's uncertainty around the outcome. And those stress levels will be multiplied when that outcome is a very, very important one. And they'll be multiplied so many times over when people sense they have an inability to influence that outcome. And I guess those sort of elements of that equation are all running very high for people at the moment. So I think in general terms, perhaps organizations and maybe the government as a whole is looking for ways to bring a degree of certainty to what's going on. As I'm woken by a very noisy dawn chorus at the moment, and looking out, the sun's still coming up and going down at night, and the leaves are breaking through now. When we choose to notice, there's more that's sticking to its regular routine in this world than is actually changing, though it might not always appear that way. So anything that can be done to inject a little certainty into what's happening. If there's anything that can be done to reduce the importance of the outcome, I think that's why the job retention scheme that was announced pretty early on has been an investment for many, to say that even though we're unclear where we're headed, let's do what we can to secure the livelihoods of as many people as we can. And jobs might change, but there's every effort being made to ensure that a job, a livelihood is still available to you. And the third determinant in that equation is about perhaps helping people play more of an active part in whatever is coming next. So whatever we can do to begin to formulate plans moving forward, whatever we can do to communicate that and provide a role for a contribution for people to play in that, so much the better.
Geoffrey, that's a fantastic framework. I hope everyone has taken notes. If they haven't, we'll have to capture that and then send it out, because I think those are the areas that everybody can work on through this and help support their employees through it, against those pillars, if you like, of how we gain back some control, some proportion of scale, some proportion of regularity and normality in what is a very strange world. Listen, everyone, thank you very much for all the chat. That seems to be going pretty well. I hope you're exchanging information between yourselves. But in terms of questions, I have one here from Carmel. Does anyone have plans for when people return to work? Employees' priorities, values and experiences will have changed as their focus as will their focus on work. We're concerned about people's well-being when returning to work, not just obviously now, but when they return to work too. Nicola, what's your plans?
Hi. Yeah, I think one of the things that we're working on at the moment is essentially a reinduction, because we'll be bringing colleagues back into quite a different landscape, I think, at that point, and also people will have different concerns. So again, knowing our colleagues, we know what some of those are already. So some people are concerned about, you know, what will be the risk at that point, and what we're doing to what training are we going to provide to people to make sure that they remain safe. And so we're working on a really positive welcome back for colleagues, so that they have confidence that all the systems are in place and structures to protect them, but also just one of the things we do is we, because we care about people, that listening ear, and that could be anyone in the business, but to understand what the worries are, and also what are people most looking forward to, so that we can build on that and we can understand that. It's difficult to say at the moment what that will look like and when that will be, but we know that we'll be really well prepared with training, we'll be really positive, and we'll support people in a positive way to come back, and to we want people to look forward to going back to work, because it's a place where people really care about each other and care about the work that they do. And so you know, that's what we're looking forward to, really, is showing colleagues that it's still there for them, that safe space.
Yourself, have you had experience or seen other employers who have started to think about how return to work will work?
Yeah, this came through actually in some of the webinars that we've been doing this week, Ian. I think some of the things that Nicola's just touched on, the fact that you're planning, Nicola, is fantastic. I mean, that's the first, the scenario planning and the kind of transition and what that looks like. Is it a staggered approach? You know, and to your point, I think what we will absolutely have to recognise, and this came through in some of the Q&A that we got this week, is that there will be lots of innovation that we can take from this in terms of how people work, but people are going to be incredibly nervous about coming back into the workplace. So in one sense, they'll be pleased to get that social cohesion back in place, and, you know, have the things that they had formerly, but there will be still lots of uncertainty coming back into the workplace. So therefore you have to have a number of different scenarios, and you need to plan really well in terms of transition, and recognise that not everybody's going to feel normal or comfortable. And then what does the new norm look like? I think, you know, in terms of, I think you touched on it earlier, Ian, what does the world of work look like post-COVID? And then what are the different ways in which we can re-engage our workers back into and feel that they have purposeful work? Because let's face it, some of our jobs may have changed. Some of the way in which we do work may have changed because of this. So we have to, you know, we've got to be mindful about a whole load of things. So I think that the important thing, to your point, Nicola, is plan out all of the different scenarios as much as you can, and actually, as a business, challenge where and how and why work gets done. So what is the job to be done now as we go into the next, you know, 6 months? Was our purpose as an organisation, is the purpose of what we were deemed to do, is that still the same? And therefore, what do we need? And in terms of innovation, what innovation has been born out of this experience, and those special moments, really harness them and start to think about actually those things that really got us through the challenge. How do we embed those into our future workplaces? So I think there's some really positive ways, but I think there's a lot of planning and scenario planning that needs to take place right now.
Yeah, I think we'll just have to see how the various layers of restriction are lifted.
Yeah.
I think I've already come across today just people talking about being fearful of going back on public transport.
Yeah.
How will public transport be managed? How will the office environment change? How will the work environment change? Geoffrey, have you got any insights on how we manage that transition back into?
I'm prompted by the contributions that others have made, that there's a wonderful set of concepts that you might want to investigate called spiral dynamics, where some very, very clever people have modelled how people's value systems develop over time. And though we're on our own journey, it's thought every so often there's what's called a quantum shift, where whole sectors of society leave one value set behind and move into a different set. And it's thought by the authors of this particular set of models that that's what's actually happening at the moment. It's been in train for some time. We're leaving what they term as a strive drive period, where much of the adult workforce has been prioritising their own wants and needs. I've wanted a bigger house, bigger car, few holidays abroad, status in my job. We've been into competition, we've been into enterprise. But when there are too many human beings doing that at one time, that does carry an implication. And it's thought, because for the last few decades, many of us have been pursuing that agenda, many businesses are pursuing that agenda, that's where the whole consumerism boom has come from, that has fostered a sort of conceit, a sort of greed, a short-sightedness that, well, it always will be. So human beings are superhuman now, and we can take over the planet and create it in our own like. And here's the world giving us a kickback. It's thought the first cues that something different was happening on a global scale came with the 2008-2009 financial meltdown. But it appears many businesses, many individuals didn't get the message, as terrible as that shock was. And now the world's reminding us that maybe we need to formulate some different values. And these different values have become coined as a community set of values, where actually tailoring our business ventures to satisfying collective need rather than individual one might be what's de rigueur in this next chapter. That I think, as the colleagues are saying, that plans will need to be revised, but I do think we'll be entering back into a different world. It won't all change overnight, and not every individual will be ready for it. But the fact we're entering into a different world will mean that some of us are going to be overwhelmed, some of us are going to be confused, and we're going to need lots and lots of support that's individually tailored. I don't think sheep dip approaches are going to work here to support different individuals adjust to this new way of being.
Insights are fantastic, Geoffrey, as always. Thank you. I think we've had a number of questions come through about what's going to stick in terms of the good things that have been picked up over the last month that we can take forward. Personally, I think it would be terrific if some of those good things not only stuck, but were built upon. But I also fear that just like in 2008-9, we rush back to the old ways and perhaps build again on even weaker foundations than we have this time round. I think we are pushed against time, actually. It's amazing how quickly this goes. But there is one question that's caught my eye, and I want to just pass this, particularly maybe Daphne, because I know you're experiencing this right now. So any tips, this is from Laura, any tips on supporting colleagues who are struggling to balance childcare, caring commitments whilst working from home?
Thank you, Ian. Yes. Yeah, but look, many of us, I think millions of us right now are at home with our children and our partners, and we are doing the best we can. I think it personally, so from a HR perspective, I think we need to be caring, compassionate, flexible, and understanding. You know, this does not happen all the time, so we cannot expect people to be as productive, to perform in the way that they would have done prior to this. So we need to be really considerate of that. And I think from a line management perspective, we really know, to your point, the kind of individuality of everybody's different situations, so that we can find a way so that they can still do their work, as you know, or have meaningful, purposeful work, but that we appreciate their personal circumstances. You know, this is, to your point, Nicola, it's about being kind, caring, and compassionate and understanding. That is well within our gift, whether you're a people manager or you know, anybody who is responsible for people. On a personal level as well, you know, let's just be human about this. You know, if your child pops up on, which mine nearly did just before this started, you know, it is okay. You know, we have to kind of accept that we are in very circumstances, that we are all working from our homes, and that our children are part of that environment. So let's not be critical about that. Let's be considerate. Some of our colleagues won't have children. But you know, where children do come in, and actually I've seen some great things just to share, you know, doing quizzes, family quizzes, you know, having the children involved. That's something we've been doing, and it's been great. So I think yeah, don't try and kind of take your children out of your world right now. Keep them involved. And a big call out for us just to be really supportive of each other is what I would say. Yeah.
Terrific. Certainly, Nicola, I'll come to you, but certainly within the growth company, I know that there's many employees with children, and one of the ideas that we've had, just as the social, is we've got someone who's a really great baker, and one lunchtime every week they have a baking demonstration, which you can follow online. The ingredients come out a couple of days before. And you can follow the video as she's baking, and I think the kids get involved in that as well, so they all feel part of it. Nicola, you wanted to come in.
Yeah, I mean, aside from the fact that I barricade myself into the room whenever I've got one of these, because I'm working from home with little ones as well, it's been really nice, and I think perhaps this opens us up to lots of new ways of working that we didn't maybe think would work before. Maybe a whole new market of colleagues who are just waiting in the wings to offer a valuable contribution. I also think that you know, on what good will come out of this. I think the recognition of the low paid, for example, is something really positive, and I like to think, because we've seen so much of it, that the world will be kinder at the side of this, and to each other, but to the planet as well. And I like to think all these new ways of working and working from home will contribute to that. And if I could just quote my managing director, Donald, he says the way we behave now will define us for the future. And I think that's so true, and really important in terms of how we conduct ourselves.
I think we couldn't finish with a better line than that, to be honest. Listen, everyone, thank you for attending. It's been a new experience for us. I hope you've enjoyed the chat and the distraction that hopefully the webinar's provided for you. We will be running more of these. We will be running with partners as well and promoting their webinars. We want to keep the network going through the COVID crisis. So heartened to see the chat constantly going here. And please give us feedback directly to the staff in the unit if we can do anything further to facilitate this sort of discussion. Thank you to you, Nicola, to you, Daphne, and Geoffrey, for your contributions.
Thank you.
Despite some little technical hiccups, we managed. Well done, guys. And watch this space for more information. As I said, there will be a YouTube video of this webinar that you can share, and any questions that we haven't got to, and there are a number, we will get back to you directly with responses. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.